I awake to the sound of chirping birds. My heart sings spring. Good morning. My name is Emmie Seaman. I became a member of this church in 2019. While taking the introductory classes, we were given a tour of the facility by Bob Eccles, who was then the facility trustee. Bob took us around the UU building and campus, and when we walked through the Memorial Garden, I was sad to see an overgrown weeds and crabgrass. At the end of our tour, I told Bob I'd like to work on the Memorial Garden, cleaning it up. Coincidentally, Della Goodwin had the same idea, and instantly she and I became the gardening committee. And now I'm the facilities trustee. If we were meeting in the church sanctuary today, you would see tropical potted houseplants alongside the windows. They've outgrown their older homes and have been donated by UU members. Cynthia Andre has a committee to help her with their care and says now we've reached our capacity and no more donations will be accepted. When you walk to the windows where the plants reside, you'll look out over the back of our campus. You'll see the Memorial Garden, the community garden, and a big circle garden. Of course, there is landscaping along sides of the building, including a Pollinator Garden on the south. The first Unitarian Church of Springfield was designed by Jack Taylor and built in 1984. By now, the landscaping in front of the building is old and overgrown and practically hides the building. This is how it looks today in 2021. Hopefully, it can be improved in the not too distant future and look something like this with smaller shrubbery that doesn't hide the building. You can see our new door there. It's a very pretty one. We're going to begin a walk around the campus. I'm not a very good record keeper, and I failed to take pictures last year with some of the gardens in full bloom, so bear with me. When we begin our walk, we look at the corner garden on the east side of the building. Obviously, I didn't take a good picture of it last summer, and all you see now are the grasses. But in the very center of it this summer, you'll see a Rose of Sharon shrub. I personally have never been very fond of Rose of Sharons, but this one has the most beautiful, delicate, double pink blossoms. So I've had to change my mind. This little garden leads to the Memorial Garden. It's in this garden where Della and I began our UU gardening adventures. I mostly dug up all the crabgrass that I could, and Della dug up about 27 young redbud trees, ranging in size from 6 inches to 2 or more feet. After as much weeding as we could do, we covered the whole garden with black plastic and left it up for the rest of you for the year to bake under the sun and kill the remaining weeds and seeds. There was a small redbud tree very close to the garden, which obviously had been shedding too many seeds, hence all the redbud seedlings. So we asked that it be cut down to give the garden more sunlight. You can also see the fountain, which at the moment is not flowing. Bob and Ross Bebot are working on its repair, but it's not an easy job as there are electrical lines running underground and under the concrete pad upon which it sits. Right now, the garden is planted with a dwarf butterfly bush, autumn sedum, daylilies, irises, gaillardias, and coneflowers. The garden still doesn't get as much sunlight as we anticipated, so more thought needs to be given to the kinds of plants used. Obviously, we need plants that thrive in partial shade. The community garden has 6 4-foot by 8-foot raised beds where members can plant and raise food for their own personal use or to share with others. There are only 6 beds, so if you're interested in using one, please contact me or a garden committee member by April 15. If these beds have no takers, the garden committee will use them for tomatoes, peppers, and other vegetables, which we'll share with the congregation. These are garlic sprouts that Mike Brown is growing, and these are some of garlics that I've grown in my own garden. I'm sharing them with you because I think they're so funny looking. Last year we had tomatoes. We had Asian beans and okra. That's an okra blossom you see right there in the middle. And this is a photograph of a bean blossom from one of those Asian bean plants. Shows you how even a lowly little bean blossom can be so beautiful, full of mystery, and a piece of art. The community garden was put to sleep for the winter and for the fall, and now it's ready to come back to life. 2 beds are already in use, but the 4 remaining beds are available. Again, please let me know by April 15th if you're interested in using one. Participants are expected to maintain the assigned parcel through to the fall and help maintain the overall garden proper. Pesticides and herbicides are prohibited. And please, 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 we ask that you not plant any perennials. We dug milkweed, a large bed of iris, and bamboo out of the beds 2 years ago. And I can't tell you how hard it is to grow vegetables around bamboo. This is a picture of my very favorite garden tool. It's a masonry hammer, or geologists call it a rock hammer. With it, I've dug many holes and pried out many rocks. For my kind of gardening, it's actually better than a shovel. This is the big circle garden. It seems to have started out as maybe a compost pile for the community garden. It contains straw, all kinds of gardening debris, and 6 big plastic bags of garden dirt. Except for the plastic bags, it was already composted into pretty good soil. Rather than try to find a place to move it, which would have been a really big job, we just cleaned it up, spread it out a little bit, and created another garden. I know, more work, but so far it's been pretty easy. It contains only perennials that were mostly donated, or the iris that we dug out of the community garden. In its center is an oak leaf hydrangea. Other flora that are around the hydrangea are again autumn sedum, yarrow, daylilies, columbine, coneflowers, and Russian sage. And this garden seems to be thriving. Here's a bee on the autumn sedum. And here's a monarch caterpillar on the milkweed, on the butterfly milkweed, excuse me. You can see the seed pods have started opening, and you can see why it's called a milkweed variety. This is the Pollinator Garden while it's asleep. It's at the very back southeast side of our building. It's cared for by Sherry and Chuck Buchanan, and it has a much larger variety of milkweed, autumn sedum, coneflowers, and other perennials that attract pollinators. The pots are usually filled with annuals. For instance, something like this zinnia, which has a spice bush swallowtail. On the west side of our property is a rain garden. It's been ignored for a few years, mainly I think because no one knew what to do with it. But the rain garden is a necessity. It drains off and channels the rainwater that's in the parking lot. Last spring and last fall, we had some major cleanups, digging out trees, cutting everything down to the ground. Right now, it's not very attractive, and we may have cleaned it out at the wrong time of year. But now that it's clean, we can monitor it and learn more about the care of rain gardens. I've learned that if the foliage had been left through the winter, it would have been homes for beneficial insects. But knowing that information now, we can do better from going forward. Della gave a hoot of laughter when she saw this picture because it's so pitiful looking. But I promise it will have some beauty this summer. There are cattails in the center where the water is, and other plants include Missouri natives, such as New England asters, rose mallow, and false sunflowers. During the clean out, this sign which explains the virtues of rain gardens and other pertinent information, had fallen over and was covered with mud and debris. Della's now cleaned it all up, and we will reinstall it. During the clean out, excuse me. Obviously, I enjoy gardening, as the rest of the garden committee seems to. I also have favorite plants. This red poppy is my very favorite. Why? Because it's red, it's gaudy, and it's just a plain old exhibitionist. Other members of the committee said, for instance, Della Goodwin likes a red heliobore. She says that when she thinks she can't take another day of the winter doldrums, the glorious heliobore blooms. They are one of the first flowering and showy leaves in late winter. They change color as they fade throughout the spring and early summer and are a perfect shade perennial plant. Mike Brown likes garlic. He was told that braids could not be made from hardneck garlic plants, so he took this as a personal challenge. Now he grows hardneck garlic every year, plats several of the buds together, and gives them away as gifts. Irises were chosen by both artists and Chuck. They both said that this flower brought back memories of their grandmothers who grew irises in large beds. Incidentally, a friend gave me this particular clump of iris, telling me that it came down through her family from her grandmother. When I sent her this picture of it blooming, she replied, "Now you're a member of our family." Gardening is one of my passions, not just for flowers, but I reap a few edibles. I am constantly amazed at how food and such beauty can come from a tiny seed or a funny looking chrome. I even enjoy weeding, as it's time for meditation and problem solving. Through gardening, many friends have been made, and not to forget the flower fairy who brought this bouquet, leaving it on my doorstep. Last year, a few of us met every Tuesday and worked on landscaping and gardens for a few hours. This year, those of us who work in the gardens plan to meet every other week and hope that we will keep on top of last year's accomplishments. Not only are we doing creative and constructive work, but we also learn particulars about gardening from each other. If you enjoy digging in the dirt and getting your hands dirty and have the time, join the garden committee. You'll be more than welcome. I'd like to close by reading a poem by Dacia Reed. Echo of woodpecker wafts on morning air. Worm spouts pock the path. Purple spears of crocus reach heavenward. Repeating shrill of bird call celebrates the golden pink dwarf horizon and new blue sky. Burgeoning skeletal branches mysteriously expand in the growing light. Wondrous greening, filigree, then shade. Mid-morning cacophony, buzzing welcome as a worker kneels in the dirt. Trowel, knee pad, a new start. Warm sun, cool breeze, mosquito and bees welcome reunion, evidenced under her nails. Snow and rain have turned the star wheel. Gardening is upon us. Thank you, Dacia, and all who helped me put this together.